Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I don't have a movie to quote.
This is the end of 2025. In fact, by the time this goes out, we'll be a day or two into 2026. So welcome. But today, we're not reviewing a movie. We are going back and celebrating the year by doing a bunch of awards, some categories for all the things we covered on the show during 2025. We did this for the Ace, our sci-fi movie podcast, that went out a couple of days ago, so you can check out that. But it'll be a lot of similar categories here, but a couple of specific Collector's Cut ones, because we do have seasons on Collector's Cut, so we can do a couple of unique things here. Yep. But yeah, it's going to be quite simple. We'll go through the categories, we'll put some nominations forth, and we'll try and agree on winners for each of those. And at the end, we have results for the audience voted for best episodes of Collector's Cut, and a couple of bonus things, because there's a couple of related things to Collector's Cut that we can also have awards for. So,
all right.
Yeah. Oh, there's a best extra reels top 5 coming. Don't you worry. It's happening.
Pete, I want to make clear to the audience, we, as he said, we have already recorded the Atomic Cinema one. Pete does not tell me anything about what to expect from any of these. Like, I can make inferences of like general things to expect, but especially during the Atomic Cinema one, it's very obvious he does not tell me these categories, because I'm sitting there like, wait, hold on, I need to find out.
Well, most of these are the same, to be fair, right. So you know what's coming now.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it. And arguably, I don't know if every single one of these necessarily fits Collector's Cut as well, but hey, you know what? Some of these categories are duds. We just won't do them next year. It's fine. Right? Yeah, we'll flip things around.
It's like the best animated category at the Oscars. Sometimes it just sucks all around, and you just take what you can.
All right. First up, best title of any movie we did in 2025.
All right. So I guess right off the top, just to be clear, the seasons that we're covering here, the ones that are allowed,
yes,
are Airport, Bruce Lee, Mission Impossible, Superman, Naked Gun, 70s Thrillers, Sidney Lumet, and then our last little Christmas films section.
Yes, that's all the eligible seasons. Now, technically, Meteor is a 2025 release, but given that all of the rest of its season is all going to be in 2026, that'll be eligible next year. Meteor is excluded from anything for this.
And then the last two Die Hard movies were also part of 2025, but we started that in 2024.
I think for the sake of this, because we have these seasons, it's very easy to just discount those and say, no, we start with Airport, we end with Elf. Right? That's the parameters of what we're talking about here. But let it be clear, though, any category in which like the worst thing could win, Die Hard 5 could very well be that winner. Yes. I just want that to be clear up front.
Right in there.
Yeah.
All right, so best title. I'll go ahead. I'll jump in. Bruce Lee season, with a twofer of Way of the Dragon and Enter the Dragon. I think those are both just top tier titles.
Those are both good titles. I do think that you've got the weird section of like the Mission Impossibles, where a lot of them have subtitles, and some are better than others.
Yeah,
I will say I do appreciate the Final Reckoning as skirting the line of we want to drop the whole part 2 thing, because we've realized that that's a bad idea, but we still have to make it clear that it's the second part of Dead Reckoning part 1. The Final Reckoning was like it was threading a needle where they needed to thread a needle, and I appreciate that.
Oh God, I really want to see some DVD box set try to make it both ways, where it's like Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Part 2, The Final Reckoning.
More than likely, they'll just drop the Part 1.
Yeah.
That said, the thumbnails on my Apple movies for these, at least up until the 6th one, have numbers on all of them now, even though the numbers aren't in the titles, except for 2 and 3. So, but they just have like a big 4 with the Ghost Protocol thumbnail and so on. And I'm fine with that, but like, you know.
Yeah, I think that's how, I can't remember where I streamed these through when I was watching through them, but it's like a red poster with a black and white version of whatever Ethan Hunt's doing, and then just the number. Probably
Paramount Plus, if I was to guess, just because
maybe
the Paramount movies.
It's one I definitely shouldn't be paying for anymore. I know that much.
So elsewhere, though, title-wise, I will say that, you know, I think if I go to the 70s Thriller season, there's maybe a couple of I think Night Moves is a good title, right? It's intriguing for what it is.
Yeah.
I think 2 Minute Warning sounds good. Now, admittedly, when I found out in the movie what a 2-minute warning actually was in the context, which is it's like an American football thing,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's actually less interesting. But I think the title on its own sounds good.
I'll then move into the very next one, Hardcore. That's going to draw you in wherever. It's a hell of a title.
That's true. That's true. I don't think anything from like Airport or Superman or Naked. I mean, okay, I suppose with Naked Gun, you could maybe award creativity for 22.5 or 2.5, like for the sequel title, because it plays into the jokes of those movies. But I don't think that's enough to get it best title of the year.
No. So. And I would argue, I don't think anything in Sidney Lumet's really jumping out at me. The only one I would argue is possibly Failsafe, because that does really work for what the movie is. And also Long Day's Journey into Night, just from kind of like a classical feel to it. It just feels like you are kind of getting that sort of more, I don't want to call it soap opera because it comes with those terms, but the melodramatic sort of feel to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think the winner's probably going to be Way of the Dragon. I would also like to shout out, though, Jingle All the Way, just because I think that's actually a really cool title.
It is.
So, yeah.
I wonder if there's been movies made enough that you could actually do the entirety of Jingle Bells from movie titles.
I'd have to look up the lyrics and try and place movies to all
like, I
them.
have to assume there's a movie called Oh, What Fun. Like, that's probably one.
I haven't heard of it if there is, but it wouldn't surprise me either. So
yeah,
I get what you're saying. I think Way of the Dragon does stick out to me as the coolest title. I mean, to be fair, even though I didn't like the movie that much in the end, I do think The Laughing Policeman is a good title. It's intriguing. You know, it's not. It doesn't sound generic, so I'll give it that.
It doesn't sound generic, but it also, like, I don't know. It sounds like an old timey, like, middle of the pack Sherlock Holmes title rather than like a hard, gritty sort of 70s film.
I mean, I think that's better than Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Well, yeah, but that's not arguing. That's better than Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
All right, Way of the Dragon. Do we agree? Are we agreeing on that?
I could go either way between Way of the Dragon or Enter the Dragon, but we can give Way of the Dragon. I'm fine with that.
I think Way of the Dragon is better. I think Enter the Dragon sounds a bit weird. Like what? And he's wrecked him. Like what part of the dragon are we getting in?
Yes, that's clearly what everyone thinks when they hear Enter the Dragon. You don't go in through the mouth. You don't fight him.
If there was a comma, if it was Enter the Dragon, as in the dragon is entering, that'd be different. But there's no comma.
Gotcha. It's Enter the Dragon.
Anyway, I stand by it. I think Way of the Dragon is a slightly better title.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, Way of the Dragon wins best title of 2025 on the collector's cut. But alternatively, we have worst title to hand out.
Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. If you're gonna introduce a subtitle, don't do it with such a hammy one.
I don't think that's the worst thing here. Don't get me wrong, the subtitle's not great, but it's still a number. It's still Superman 4. That's perfectly reasonable. I think there's more of an argument for like some of the Mission Impossible subtitles are a bit generic. I mean, I think that the last couple are all right, but I think Rogue Nation and Fallout just sound very generic to me.
Yeah, Fallout's the one for me. Fallout is, if I have to pick one out of the whole section, because it tells you nothing. It gives you, like, what is even the plot of that one besides nukes? In which case, like, 4 of them involve nukes.
Also, I would actually point out, now, the way we've written it on the spreadsheet here is perfectly fine, but the actual title is The Concorde ... Airport 79.
That's right. I forgot the ...
I think that is absolutely a contender for worst title.
That is, yeah. That's a horrible title. I remember commenting on that. Like, how do you, what in the marketing department couldn't come to an agreement? I think you're right.
I think that's the winner. I think there's a couple of generic subtitles for Mission Impossible, but I think the worst title is absolutely The Concorde ... Airport 79. Like, even if it was Airport 79 : The Concorde, perfectly fine, right? It's the first time with a subtitle, but whatever. Lots of franchises do that. But no, the audacity of swapping it around and then not even just putting a colon, like, because I hate the Lost World Jurassic Park. It should be Jurassic Park: The Lost World, you assholes. Why would you do that to us? But this is like taking that and turning it up to 11. This is garbage.
No, it makes it feel like there was a movie called The Concorde, recorded, produced, set in editing, and then when they were releasing it, they're like, oh wait, we can make this an airport movie, and they just tacked it onto the end.
And we know that's not the case because there's literally a returning character. It was always supposed to be the fourth airport movie, but yeah.
But if I were to see that on a poster, I'd say, oh well, that's the death of the airport franchise.
And would you believe it? It was.
Yeah.
So there you go. Congratulations, The Concorde ... Airport 79 for being the worst title of the year.
Congrats.
Yes. Next up, best FX of anything we did in 2025. So again, I'll say of 2025 a lot. What I mean is, of course, what we covered in 2025, just to be clear.
Right.
But
and also over on the Atomic Cinema one, it's kind of best effects taking into account when it was made as well.
Yeah, what's most pleasing overall to the eye, rather than what's the most technically best effects. Yeah. So
because I'm gonna go ahead and just. Is this one with the worst category? I can't remember.
Yeah, there's the worst after this as well.
All right, then I won't say it because I have an absolute pick for that one.
For sure.
If I don't know. I obviously the Mission Impossibles have always been pretty good with the effects. Even when they're doing just stunt work, when they need to work in effects, they do a pretty good job at it.
Because even in the Ghost Protocol, which I think is the best one of the bunch, and all that stuff on the building in Dubai, I would say that, well as a lot of practical hanging out of a building, there's also a lot of extra shots that were done with blue screen and stuff like that don't stick out. It's that sort of thing where having a few real shots mixed in with a lot of fake ones actually really sells the fake ones, so that it's all very seamless and it feels great. So I think that's a contender for sure.
Yeah. And then moving into the next season, for most of Superman season, not much really stands out, but I will say Superman 1 and 2, the flying scenes in that are very well done.
I think it's even the flying scenes that stick out to me, and obviously they're good. But for me, if you were making an argument for the original Superman, for me it would be more like the Krypton stuff and stuff like that, or some of the stuff maybe in the third act with the dams breaking and Superman lifting up a continent on his back and things like that's the stuff where visually I'm like, oh, this stuff is stunning, and it's still very stunning. Whereas on the flip side, you've got Superman from 2025, which obviously is technically much more efficient and better and has a lot of great stuff in it, but I don't know, obviously on Ace we're talking about say Avatar Fire and Ash and how that is clearly head and shoulders above everything else technically, but I don't know if Superman necessarily sticks out. It's better than what typical Marvel movies have effects wise these days, but I don't know if it sticks out in general compared to other movies. It's very serviceable and good, but not necessarily amazing.
Yeah, no, I'd argue that point too. I think we don't even need to really bring up Superman Returns. That whole era just kind of feels a little bit and it definitely didn't work out. Rubbery
CG, and then on top of that, just really the color grading of it's all pretty meh and just feels unpleasant. So I think that's fair.
Honestly, rest of the year between Naked Gun, 70s Thriller, Sidney Lumet, there's not really any heavy effects work that I think needs noting. The only thing is once we get down to Jingle All the Way and Elf. Jingle All the Way for the jetpack sequence and Elf for the opening sort of Christmas town sequence.
Yeah, if I was going to give any shout outs to the airport franchise, I would say that the middle two do have some fun stuff, whether it's the stuff with transferring between planes in 75 or the underwater side of things in 77. There is some fun stuff there that they're doing with their effects. I don't think they've got a chance of winning, but I do think they're worth mentioning here.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I think this is really going to come down to somewhere between Superman and Mission Impossible.
I think it's the absolute breathtaking realism and the sense of vertigo from Ghost Protocol versus the majesty of some of the stuff in the original Superman. And for me, that's what this comes down to, is those two.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. As much as, every one of the movies across both franchises has their little things that they can contribute to it. But I think those are the standouts for each franchise. And yeah, I think I'd probably say Mission Impossible. Yeah. As much as I like the Superman stuff, and I do think it does hold up, there is just a head and shoulders difference here. And we were, again, not to keep referencing it, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, end of year one, we kept on bringing up how James Cameron was doing all the big pushing forwards of technology and visual effects and stuff like that of this era. I would argue that Mission Impossible was doing a lot for the action scene. It was doing a lot for like stunt work and like making that stuff feel as big as it was on like filming it to the audience as well.
Yeah, so and I think Ghost Protocol is the one that sticks out to me as just looking the best. Obviously, all of the ones after that obviously have big set pieces that you could argue against it, like the skydiving in Fallout or the helicopter stuff towards the end of that. I think the newest one had all that submarine stuff, which I thought was great, but I still think the building in Dubai is my favorite, the Burj Khalifa stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's definitely one of the best movies out of the entire franchise by far.
All right, best effects goes to Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Next up, Superman 4 is probably winning the worst effects of the year. What now?
I have a counter. I have a hard counter for Superman 4. I will remind you of how they did my boy dirty in Game of Death.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's a very different type of thing we're talking about. But you're right. Okay, Game of Death, of course, they didn't have Bruce Lee because, he was dead. So they had to use...
kind of a little thing to get in the way of making a movie nowadays, but back then, kind of a big deal.
So, they have body doubles, they're trying to hide his face and whatever, which didn't even make sense because the plot even had a reason for why he changes his appearance before we get the real Bruce Lee footage. But they did it anyway. And one of the most egregious, of course, was a cardboard cutout that was over the face of someone for one scene, which is the most wildly egregious. Like, how did you think you were getting away with that type moments?
Yep. I can't think of anything worse than that for a special effect.
Honestly, the only argument I have against it is like, I'm not even sure it qualifies as an effect.
It's not special. It's just an effect. That's all it is.
Like, at least in Superman 4, like, we are talking about them trying to do stuff in space. We're talking about them trying to do moments. Now, there's still some effects that are okay in Superman 4. They're not all terrible, but like, there's definitely a lot of stuff that feels really cheap compared to the original Superman. I mean, Game of Death is just full of like dodgy stuff and dodgy body doubles and things like that.
No, it's not. But like I think that count as much as Superman 4 is bad. I think that it still is head and shoulders above what we had in Game of Death. And obviously there's like a 10-year difference. Obviously special effects are going to be better, but I don't think
that's not the differential here. It's not the time.
It's not. Game of Death was absolutely just like, and I think what's worse about Game of Death is Superman 4, it felt like they were still earnestly trying. The money wasn't there. They didn't have the capabilities to do it, but it felt like they were still trying. Game of Death felt like it was just trying to cash in and like make the quickest buck possible.
Okay, you've convinced me. Game of Death, worst effects. I agree.
All right,
let's do it. All right, that wins. Congratulations, Game of Death. Next up, horniest movie of the year.
Ooh.
Now, I'm scanning. Admittedly, I think a lot of these movies don't have that much in the way of art. Like, Airport 79 did have like a weird, like, you have to get back out here, let's have a date with a prostitute sequence, but I don't know if I'd describe it as a horny movie per se.
Honestly, like, most of the franchises, most of the seasons we did, I don't get that much out of any of them in terms of horniness. There's a little bit...
It feels like 70s thrillers is going to be where a lot of this comes from. I could maybe make a joke argument for like the new Naked Gun, the snowman stuff. Like there's some horniness there in a way, but
there's a snowman. They did the silhouette work again with like the turkey baster and whatnot.
Oh yeah, the heat vision sequence. But it's hard not to look at like 70s thrillers because there's a lot of stuff in Night Moves, which revolves around someone who, a girl who's went missing and what her sexual escapades were. Obviously, Hardcore is very much that as well, with the girl who's went missing and might be in the porn industry.
Klute's got a little bit.
I think there's an argument Klute's actually, I've said horniest. I think there's an argument that Klute is the sexiest of those movies because it's very much about getting to know the character who is in the sex line of work. But it's all about like a genuine connection to her and this other character. But there's a lot of tension building up to that. Like, she assumes, I'll distract him with feminine wails. It doesn't work. But then there's a slow build to actual feelings building up. And then the mismatch of like which one of them thinks what's going on at any given time. And you know, letting themselves go away with their feelings at certain, you know. I think there's an argument for Clute, because Clute has a different, like all the different flavors of like real sex, like forced. No, I don't mean forced in like a non-consensual way. I mean forced in like a forcing the idea of sex upon you in terms of like, you know, shoving it in your face, and like the facade of like what's sexy, but then also the real side of it, and then genuinely like it has every layer of it. So I think Clute's got a good argument actually. Now that I'm thinking about it,
it does. I stand by that. Night Moves, as you already mentioned, the idea that he is going after this girl. And
Ultra
in that
sleaze.
one, I think if we're talking more specifically just horny, I think Night Moves probably pulls it out, because the only other contender is Hardcore. And Hardcore kind of has that same Clute aspect where it is about the sex industry, is about that sort of stuff. And so while it is showing it, it isn't like actually being horny about it. Yeah, it's being looking down on it almost.
I wouldn't say looking down, because I think we actually commented that it was quite good about not looking down on people who were in the sex industry.
Right.
But it does feel like there's always kind of an uncomfortable, this is not supposed to be titillating. Night Moves kind of skirting the line a little bit in the middle somewhere. But I think I'd say Clute. Maybe it's going against just the word horniest is what is actually in the category title, but I feel like it's the most enveloping of this in every way, where there's both good and bad sides to the horniest and Clute. Like, you know, some of it is positive, some of it's negative, and it's kind of a full representation of everything that can be horny in a movie, outside of just straight up, here's a lot of like hardcore sex scenes.
Right. Yeah, no, I guess I don't have a strong argument outside of the difference. Like you said, there's the difference between it literally the definition of the word horny, and then the larger, broader aspect of Clute is all these sexual things. I agree that Clute is the more sexual thing, so it really comes down to a matter of wording, however you want to call that in terms of horniness.
Yeah, I think I want to give it to Clute. I think there's a little bit of room for interpretation here that we can decide upon what feels right, and I think Clute, and arguably, I think it's the best movie of those three we're talking about. They all have their positives, but
honorable mention that we didn't bring up, Long Goodbye, out of that season, has the nudist topless neighbors going on the entire time.
Yes, that's a thing that's there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, there you go. Winner of horniest movie of the year is Clute. Congratulations. You may accept your award.
Put that on a DVD box set.
Yes, that's cut out. Like Jane Fonda's free. She can come and accept the award, right?
Oh yeah, she's not doing anything nowadays. Netflix movies. That's it.
All right. Next up, we have the Up Its Own Ass Award of the year. Admittedly, depending on the seasons, this might be a tougher one to give out on Collector's Cut, but I don't think Airport, any of that's up its own ass. I don't think any of Bruce Lee's up its own ass. I don't think Mission Impossible or Superman or Naked Gun really.
Look, we all know where we're going to end up on this one. It's going to be Sidney Lumet season, isn't it?
Yeah, but he has the talent to back it up, though. I don't know. I mean, I guess like it probably does naturally fall into that, but I don't like.
No, I agree. I think that Sidney Lumet, like, it's very hard to point at his movies and say, "Oh God, he's just doing that pretentious thing again." And I agree, but it's because of the season's choice. There really isn't anything else here that feels like, unless you're going to try to argue It's a Wonderful Life is so far up Frank Capra's ass, and I don't think it is.
Like, I think the only other things that would maybe be eligible is I could make an argument for perhaps The Laughing Policeman, or Long Goodbye. You know, of thinking they're better than they are, I guess. Is I guess how I'd phrase that. But I mean, as far as like Up Its Own Ass, like, because it's such a negative quality, I don't really want to give it to one of the Sidney Lumet movies that I think are genuinely great. Because even the first couple, which we weren't as positive on, I think are both good movies. I think. Yeah. So I'm like, well, so what? Anderson Tapes or Child's Play are the two that we weren't as hot on?
I could make the argument of Child's Play. I think Anderson Tapes is too, I don't want to say action oriented, but it's not up its ass. It's definitely not trying to be like pretentious. I think Child's Play is closer to that. Yeah,
because I think if the quality is there to back it up, it's hard to say it's up its own ass. Like I'm never going to say that about Pawnbroker, Failsafe, for The Hill. I think they're all just excellent, so I can't say it.
I will be honest. I talked to Pete about this beforehand. My memory is god awful. It is the worst. I wasn't entirely remembering which one Laughing Policeman was. I brought it up. I think I might be also leaning towards that.
Yeah, yes.
Because Laughing Policeman, I forgot that was the Walter Matthau one.
Yeah, that's the one where it sets up an intriguing premise, but then it becomes about, oh, we're going to be like really realistic about doing all these police interviews, but most of them are kind of boring and don't actually advance the plot. They're dead ends. It feels a little bit like, yeah, we're being the serious, more realistic police movie, but you're also the boring police movie that I'm begging to end. So I can make an argument for Laughing Policeman, I think.
Yeah. I honestly, because I would say it's going to be Child's Play or Laughing Policeman for me. And if you're not quite feeling like, if you think Child's Play had it to back it up, then so be it. But between the two, those are the ones that, even if I just didn't like them, it just felt like they were so trying to be something larger than what they were. They were both trying to be something, whereas Laughing Policeman was obviously add a bit of action, be a bit cooler than it is. Child's Play just as easily was do a little bit more cool with the supernatural side. Lean into that because you've given us that a little bit. It doesn't have to be this cut and dry, like, character study as dry as you've made it.
I don't think I'd use the word supernatural, but I get what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think between those two, I would say Laughing Policeman. I think Child's Play obviously falls a bit short, and we were definitely more mixed on it. But I think that it felt like more of an earnest attempt, whereas Laughing Policeman feels like, all the things that the director and co think they're doing that are special is actively what's making it worse. And I think that's maybe, in some ways, the definition of up your own ass. So, Laughing Policeman is the most up its own ass of the year.
All right.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Next up, we have the weirdest movie of the year, which... Yeah, again, this is very season dependent on what we can actually pick for this. I mean, I guess kind of Game of Death probably falls into it. A little weird for kind of production reasons.
Yeah, it depends on your definition of weird, because obviously Game of Death is a movie that by all rights shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be something that actually was put to film. Depending on how wide you want to spread the word weird, obviously the Naked Gun franchise is a weird franchise in its own right.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd count them as weird just because they're comedy spoofs. Like they're allowed to be, silly. I think for weird, it'd be more like I can make an argument for Airport 79 because the entire premise of them, basically the plot of that one is someone's trying to assassinate one person on the plane, so they're trying to take down the whole plane. But then the fact that there's just a lot of weird decisions in the script, all of these people get back on a plane again, and then it's attacked again, and it's like, why did you do it? Why didn't you all separate into different planes to throw people off? But no, we just get back on the same plane. I don't know. There's just a lot of weird things, but then you could argue that's maybe just a really bad script as opposed to being weird per se.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same sort of line as horny. You just gotta decide what your definition here is and go with that.
I think there's some arguments here for either Superman 3 or 4. 3 because it's a Richard Pryor movie that's supposed to be a Superman movie, and all the weirdness that comes from that. So I think that's the contender. And then 4, of course, you've got Nuclear Man and all that crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
But
I'll still argue Superman 4 feels more like a Superman film than Superman 3 did. Superman 4 feels more like they actually we're doing Superman 3. Yeah. Superman 3 was just Richard Pryor getting into hijinks, and Superman happens to show up.
But I think 3 is more entertaining overall, though, if I was to pick one. Yes. So you've got that, and then as far as anything else weird goes, I mean, if you wanted to be really pedantic, you can maybe pick apart something like Elf, and he's someone's dating him even though he's grown up somewhere where there's been no, I don't know. But I think that's trying maybe stretching at that point.
That's whenever that's the sort of thing where when we get into the Patreon stuff of sexual tension award, where there is no sexual tension, we just gotta kind of make something up. That's kind of the same thing here. I would agree with you that I think by definition of weird, I would say it's between Superman 3 or Game of Death. One, because conceptually, what's down on paper in Superman 3 should not be a Superman movie, but it's still an acceptable movie in its own right. A Richard Pryor film, that's fine. You're allowed to have that, whatever. Game of Death is weird because it shouldn't exist. It's by design, they had this leftover footage and they should have just released the footage. Instead, they did this whole other plot that's insane on top of it just to try to justify it.
I think I'm picking Superman 3 because Game of Death, at least you understand what they were trying to work around and why they presented what they did, because they had this footage, like, okay, we'll build something around it, so obviously it's a mess. You understand the process there. Superman 3 has no reason to be like it is, but they just, for some reason, were determined to be that weird about it. So I think Superman 3 wins this.
I'm trying to figure out what the equivalent of that would be nowadays. Like, if the next Superman movie comes out and all of a sudden it's just like, and here's, I don't even know any popular comedians.
I don't know. Me neither.
I'll go old school. Here's Dane Cook just riffing for like 2 hours.
Well, no, that's not fair because that's not a good comedian. Like, I think you have to pick someone of the caliber of Richard Pryor, because Richard Pryor was actually funny. So
that's fair, but I don't know any modern ones. I don't watch stand-up comedy. I probably should at some point. It might help my improv ability to be able to watch some stand-up comedy.
All right, let's go Superman 3 then for weirdest movie of the year, and we can look forward then to the best looking movie we did in 2025.
Okay.
So, okay, I mean, Mission Impossibles generally look good, but they're very just sort of typical modern for the most part.
Yeah.
I think Superman
Bruce
1
Lee season as a whole is just kind of fine, but it's not gonna like stand out at all.
Yeah, I like them for what they are, but I think Superman 1 sticks out to me as being visually very stimulant. I think again we're looking at 70s thrillers and Sidney Lumet as where we're going to get the potential of great looking cinematography.
Yeah.
I think Clute looks great. I think Night Moves really stuck out to me for how good it looked. And to an extent, French Connection actually had a really gritty style that I think really worked for what that movie was.
Yeah, for sure. Down in the other side, The Hill. I remember many shots from The Hill.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good looking stuff in that Sidney Lumet season, but I think The Hill's the one that stuck out specifically for visuals because it used its prison and that hill especially to really like visually punctuate its story. That said, though, Pawnbroker, looked great. I think Fugitive Kind and Long Day's Journey to Night had a lot of good little things in the cinematography that really helped them. But yeah, if I was narrowing this down, I would say it's between Superman 1, Clute, Night Moves, and The Hill. I think those are the ones that stick out to me as being the most visually impressive from a cinematography point of view.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's hard to say otherwise. Between The Hill and Pawnbroker, I think that they both have very, very similar things to them, but I feel like The Hill is just kind of the setting of it makes it much more visually interesting. It makes it a lot more because you get so much more varied shots. I'm thinking of like the inside the jail scene where like we get all the different levels being filmed from as well. So I feel like that takes over on Pawnbroker a little bit. Superman's kind of hard to compare to any of these because it is just so wildly different. Comparatively.
Yeah, but you've got that Krypton stuff. You've got those sort of sweeping shots in the fields as he's saying goodbye, and then you've got all the spectacle stuff of actual Superman action, of course. But
I think it looks great, but I don't know. I whenever I think of Superman, I think of it more from the special effects sort of spectacle side rather than specifically like a cinematography sort of aspect of it. I feel like there's good highs, but consistently it's not just all great the whole way through. Some of it feels very by the numbers.
Yeah, I think The Hill was the most surprising visually stimulant movie, although I think Night Moves was a bit more subtle in how good it was with its cinematography. But it does
the scene when they were out on the boat and there was like that underlighting, that was something specific.
Oh, that was great, yeah. And then of course you also had all the stuff at the end where he's like alone in the boat and like all that stuff and yeah, a lot of great stuff there. It does feel like we're maybe leaning towards The Hill actually for visuals.
Yeah, but it's tight. It's a very tight one.
I think I'm happy to give it to. I think it's an interesting choice as well, which I'm not always going to pick something that sometimes the boring choice is the correct choice, but I think here it's so close that I think the interesting choice is edging it out for me a little bit.
All right, yeah, that works for me. I mean, I'd be happy with either of them, honestly, but I do think I am a little bit more towards The Hill.
All right, best looking movie of the year is The Hill. The best sounding movie of the year, now, it's Superman. Let's just not pretend that it isn't, right?
What? No. I love that Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack with all the techno and bumping music.
Dun 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 dun.
Exactly.
Dun, dun. No, I mean, obviously Mission Impossible sound good from like an action sort of movie sound mix perspective, and they have a very iconic theme. Mm-hmm. Superman, the new version, obviously I love what they did with the score, and I love the new things they added into it. I loved all that stuff. But the original Superman is one of the most iconic movie scores of all time. It's the most iconic superhero score of all time.
Yeah.
I just... It's Superman. There's nothing else here for me that sticks out. And it's not just a music award. Don't get me wrong. Other things can factor into it. Mm-hmm. But nothing here is even in the same league as the original Superman here for sound. That's how I feel.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, if looking at just raw numbers, which obviously is not the way to do this, but looking at raw numbers, it was either going to be for me Superman or Superman 2025. Like, I love both those scores for different reasons, but obviously 2025 is pulling from the original. It's using that as the base template. Yep. And that one, it's like you said, it's a perfect superhero score. They, as much as like, it doesn't happen anymore, but I remember saying like maybe 5 years ago, just before Endgame came out, I would try to play the Avengers theme in my head, and for some reason it would always just morph its way into the Army Corps song that they use in their commercials. Like it wasn't, it still wasn't like sticking for me as heavily as it should have. But Superman, I'll find myself humming that without even trying to.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's a perfect sounding movie. So, I gotta go. The only negative I can say is the way Marlon Brando pronounces Krypton. That's it. Krypton, yes.
And the Nuclear Man.
That's 4. We don't have to worry about that.
I know. I just like the way they pronounce certain things.
So, yes, best sounding movie of the year is the original Superman. Done. All right. Biggest disagreement that we had for any movie.
All right. Okay.
I don't know if we disagreed that much on anything in particular this year, did we, on this show?
No, not really. Let's hear. We had a 1.5 point difference on Airport 1975.
Yeah, I like that. That was my favorite of that season, I think. I quite like that one.
And that one just didn't work for me. That was one of my weaker ones of the season. Not outclassing Concorde, but still weaker.
Yeah, no, I'd fight for it. I think that was a fun movie that was nailing what it was doing. So that's the first contender then for biggest disagreement. What else we got?
1.5 difference on The Long Goodbye. I liked that one a lot more than you did.
That's right. I really didn't like that, and it definitely fits into a subgenre of like hard-boiled noir detectives that I find really boring the way that story's told. So that could be a contender as well. But similar number difference. Anything else sticking out?
I don't see anything that is above that or equal to that point difference. So that's not to say, Elf is the last one, a 1.5 difference where I was a little bit higher than you were. But I'm not going to fight for Elf. I ain't going to do it.
I mean, so it really comes down to then, what do we think was more passionate? Me on Airport 75 or you in Long Goodbye?
I don't remember like really, really sticking it to Long Goodbye. I think what it came down to was I just liked I think you were like kind of against the way that the character was done, and specifically that genre, and I was a bit more open to it there. But it's not like I was really like hard pressed for the genre either. The
funny thing is that, and this works for both movies, I think I was more passionate about how I liked Airport 75, but I also think I was more passionate about how negative I was about Long Goodbye versus...
I was sitting here playing the straight man.
Yeah, versus you in both movies where I think you were a bit more just lukewarm on either side of each one.
Yeah, probably. If I had to put it to it, I think that I would say I was less firm on Airport 1975. I think that one, I was in mind keeping like other disaster movies as a whole, and with it only being the second airport movie, I didn't quite have a good firm grasp of that particular franchise of where it was going yet. So having looked at the franchise overall, and especially seeing Concorde after all that, I feel like I probably could revise my score to be a little bit higher there, but it just didn't work for me at the moment.
So you're arguing that means Long Goodbye is the biggest disagreement, or are you saying that?
I don't know what I was trying to say there, I guess. I guess what I'm more or less trying to say there is I'm willing to give more on Airport 1975. So yes, that would mean The Long Goodbye is one that I feel more firmly on. That I like the way that that character was portrayed as I remember it.
I mean, I really did not like that movie, so I mean that works for this category if that's the biggest disagreement.
Yeah, and it had nudist topless neighbors, Pete. How do you give that a 5.5 or whatever? That's insane to me.
I'll let that speak for itself. I don't need to respond to that. So yeah. Okay.
By the way, I brought this up to Pete after we finished recording. Hi, Grandma.
yeah, Grandma David. Did you know David really likes tits? Congratulations.
Apparently. How's it going? You can fast forward through this part. Don't worry about it.
All right, biggest disagreement is The Long Goodbye. So, but that was a bit lukewarm. We didn't really have a bit like I wasn't no huge disagreements. We definitely had bigger ones on Ace than we did on Collector's Cut. So okay, that's cool. Next up, best villain of the year. So right, Airports doesn't really have villains in the typical sense.
The Sky.
The Bruce Lee season mostly did because they all have a villain of some kind, some more memorable than others.
Yeah. I think I'll have to look it up to make sure I'm looking at the right one here, but I think I really remember liking the villain of Fist of Fury. I think that one really stuck out to me as a good one. Which one was the one with Chuck Norris? He nailed it.
That was Way of the Dragon, was Chuck Norris.
That was Way of the Dragon, okay.
Yeah. So that's good fun. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that he had a good presence at the end of that movie, at least. I don't know if it's enough to get him villain of the year, but he was memorable in the scenes he was in. Obviously, people, I think, tend to like the villain in Enter the Dragon. I think he's fine. I think he works in the movie. I don't know if I'd say he stands out to me. Mission Impossible's got a gauntlet, because everyone's got a villain. First movie, John Voight. I mean, okay, that's a bit of a spoiler, sorry. But they don't reveal that till near the end. But yeah. But yeah, it's fine, I guess. I hated the villain in the second one. Shame to Scotland, frankly. Third movie, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I don't think I want him to win.
Him. I really liked him.
He's good in the movie. I don't know if he's fleshed out enough for me to be villain of the year. I love Ghost Protocol. I think the villain's just serviceable. He's there to play his part. He's fine. I actively dislike the villain in 5. We agreed on that, and I think we were actually kind of in a minority on the internet with that. But we agreed that we did not like the villain in 5.
Fair enough.
He's still kind of around for 6. I guess it's a spoiler to say who the real villain is in 6, so we won't say. But I wouldn't say that he stands out for me.
7 and 8. I mean, there's the villain, and then there's the villain.
Yeah, neither one of which I think is going to. So then we get to Superman. We got Lex Luthor from Hackman.
Very good.
We also have Nicholas Holt's version of Lex Luthor, which also may be worth mentioning there. So that's something. Nuclear Man, of course. Is
Zod.
Oh, and of course, Zod. You know what? Yeah, Zod maybe the standout, actually, the villains in those movies so far. That's I'm glad you said that. Zod's a good shout. I mean, Ricardo Montalban's fun as the villain in Naked Gun. Again, I don't know if I'm going to be rooting for him to win.
None of the Naked Gun movies really stand out as the villain being the strong part there.
There is a villain in French Connection. True. Someone that's been tracked down. I mean, the movie's a bit more nuanced than just that. It's good versus evil, but there is a villain.
Yeah.
So
the 70s thrillers are the ones where, like, technically you could point to someone being an antagonist, but to say they are like the big villain that stands out, I don't think any of them are really going to outclass Superman or even Mission Impossible.
Let's see here. Sidney Lumet, there's a villain in Child's Play, although it's a bit of a spoiler to get into it too much.
Right. And he was good. He was solid.
Yeah, no, he was.
He was kind of working against the movie. He was like so good that it was against what the movie was doing.
To be fair, Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, he is an absolute bastard.
Oh, yeah. No, he's a class. I'm sure that he's the one that pops up on, like, top 10 worst Christmas villains of all time. Ebenezer Scrooge, Mr. Potter.
Sinbad, Jingle All the Way.
It's weird to think of him as the villain. I feel like commercialization and capitalism should be the villain. But yes, it's Sinbad.
I mean, he's more of a traditional villain by the end, I suppose, but he does get there.
Or is it the neighbor?
Ah, yes, Phil Hartman and his desire for Arnold's wife is obviously there too. Bad Father, that's the real villain of
that is
Jingle All the Way.
Everyone, make it to your kids' karate lessons. That's important.
I don't know. I'm looking at the thrillers. French Connection is probably the one that has the most notable character who's in a villainous role.
Right.
Out of those.
But even then, like the movie, if we're talking about standout, the movie is so much more about Hackman than it is.
Yeah, I actually think I have a decent answer here from elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
The Hill.
Oh, yeah, he was.
There's two characters in that you could argue are villains. And really sort of, and they are very strong, memorable people who you kind of hate in that movie. So I think there's a strong argument for those.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to also mention, I think it was Fugitive Kind had technically
the husband.
Antagonist.
No, he absolutely was a villain. Absolutely. And I think you did really hate him as the movie went on, and he does some despicable thing. I think, you know what? That's a good shout. I mean, it may not win, but I really think that is worth mentioning because Fugitive Kind, I think, is a really solid, well-done movie that maybe doesn't hold up compared to some of the best of that season, but I do think that villain is a bastard. So, no, very good.
It does a great job of, we kept on saying, it builds up the menace of him without him even having to be on screen.
So I think for me here, we're kind of coming down to either the more fun spectacle, theatrical performance of Zod in Superman 2 versus the more like grounded asshole of The Hill. Like the petty guy who's the career military man who wants to like punish other people because he enjoys it. Like that's more real. It's more of like a real person, which makes it worse maybe.
It's honestly, I feel like it comes down to the wording of the category. When you say the word villain, my mind goes to Zod. My mind goes to like, that is a villain. But if you have the biggest antagonist, the standout like bad guy, I feel like The Hill would win it. Well, because that is much more tantalizing.
I think the main general in The Hill is an antagonist. I think the one who is causing the trouble is a villain. I think he crosses that line into villain.
Yeah, probably. I honestly, I'd be okay with The Hill. I as much as I love Zod and I do think he does deliver a great performance, it is still very comic booky. It is still very it's over the top.
It's a little camp. It's fun and it's great, but it's a little campy for sure because of what it is.
I could see the antagonist and the villain from The Hill being mentioned in the same breath as like Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's
Nurse Ratched is absolutely a great comparison. It's definitely in that kind of vein of villain. So I can't remember his name, but yeah, the sort of the younger general from The Hill is absolutely the pick here.
The issue being is that has like a cast of like 12 main characters.
Yeah, good luck deciphering which one that is.
Tell which one. Sadistic guards, blah blah blah.
David's on
Staff Sergeant Williams.
I think that sounds right. Staff Sergeant Williams sounds right.
He may be the good one. He may be the bad one. It's Ian Hendry, which I think was the bad one.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's RSM Wilson, who was like the main general guy.
Right, yeah. No, either way, like if you've seen the movie, you know who we're talking about. Like the villain of that movie. Yeah, I think he takes villain of the year. So, yeah, Staff Sergeant, evil Staff Sergeant from The Hill is villain of the year. Very good. The Hill's getting a couple of things there. So, cool. Next up, we have most forgettable movie of the year.
I completely forgot Laughing Policeman. I completely forgot Laughing. Like, I had to look it up to find out what it was. Everything else in here I got a little bit out of. Nothing for that.
Yeah, I'm just looking down and see if anything else is forgettable. You know what? Honestly, it may be the only one that I think is outright forgettable. Everything else, to some extent, I'm going to remember, even if they're mediocre, right?
I will say I got a little bit of blending in my head between Big Boss and Fist of Fury. I just a tiny bit of blending there. I'm not sure specifically what happened in which movie, but I do remember everything between both.
I separate them quite easily because Big Boss is like, oh, Bruce Lee moves to a small town, he gets the job, some people are going missing. Fist of Fury is the one where the master of the school's is died at the start, and it's like the rival school and all that stuff, right? So they do separate in my head quite well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Laughing Policeman, I think, is probably the ticket here out of everything.
I think there's an argument for a certain type of person for Long Day's Journey into Night because it is just so long with so little happening. But I think for us personally, we can keep that pretty well in mind.
No, if I was going to pick anything from LeMay season, it would probably be Anderson tapes that will fade the most. But Yeah, I think Laughing Policeman gets it. So I think Laughing Policeman takes that. So cool. That is the most forgettable movie. Biggest disappointment of the year. This is a weird one for this show in particular, because so many of the seasons I've seen a lot of the movies already, so it's like it really narrows down like what you know. And the new movies we did, like I really like the new Superman, I really like the new Naked Gun, so none of the new stuff is disappointing for me.
yeah. Again, it's one of those weird things where I said this over on the Ace one, where you're the one who builds the schedules pretty much. I have very little input. So when I go into these things, I know the kind of stuff you put me through. So I go in with very little expectations. It's hard to disappoint me.
I don't go out of my way to put bad stuff in Ace or Collector's Cut schedules, though.
I know, but I just expect it anyway.
There's a variety of quality. It's fine. I guess
you are better at Collector's Cut. Collector's Cut usually has a better bar of quality.
I will say that I think 2 Minute Warning I thought was a fun premise, and then it fell flat. So I think that falls under disappointing.
Yeah, I get that. Is the next one biggest surprise? Just to be clear.
Pleasant surprise, yeah. Biggest pleasant surprise.
Because I was about to say the one that I think is the opposite, so I'll hold off. I might almost, just because of the structure of the season, I might almost say Anderson Tapes, because we went from
I see. Yeah, and the flow of like
Failsafe, The Hill, and then it just dropped.
Yeah, and then I see what you're saying. In the flow of the season, it was like, hey, 2 solid movies and then 3 great movies, and then Anderson Tapes kind of came crashing down.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I get the logic. I get the logic. I don't know. I feel like in some way though, it felt like it had less prestige. So I guess in a weird way, I was kind of braced for it. I think 2 Minute Warning feels more like disappointing category to me than Anderson Tapes does. But I see the argument for it in the context of like the way the season was going.
Yeah, I get that. I think 2 Minute Warning is the more disappointing if you had read like the little IMDb synopsis, or if you knew like the bare minimum about it going in, because it sounds on paper like it has so much more promise than it actually does. Whereas Anderson Tapes was more disappointing just from a completely like neutral perspective of everything else in the season, and then that one just killed the momentum.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument to an extent as well that even with bland memories, that Superman Returns is still disappointing. It's even more bland and worse than you remembered, which I mean that's a very different thing almost, but still.
Well, it only gets more disappointing with every time that like, oh, Kevin Spacey, Bryan Singer, anybody else in these movies does something.
Yeah, there was a small window when only one of them was problematic, and now now they're both problematic, and yeah. But I mean,
I don't know how to pick.
Yeah, I don't feel too strongly about this. I don't think there's anything here that's is as disappointing as maybe what I picked on the other movie shows. So you could decide. What do you think fits more, 2 Minute Warning or Anderson Tapes? Like, because it's really down to interpretation as opposed to, because I think movies on their own in a vacuum, I think 2 Minute Warning has a more fun premise up front and fails. But I like if you want to argue in the context of the season, which I think is a very valid way to look at this if you want to, I can see why Anderson Tapes is disappointing. So
yeah, I think I'd give it to 2 Minute Warning because the Anderson Tapes is very unique to just us, whereas I think 2 Minute Warning is the sort of thing where going into it even just the beginning of the movie, it has a very strong punch to it.
The first half hour I think was promising. The first half hour was setting things up correctly, and then it just kind of didn't do what it needed to do. So
so I'd say 2 Minute Warning.
All right, 2 Minute Warning, biggest disappointment of the year. So yeah, the flip side of that is the biggest pleasant surprise of the year.
I mean, I'll go ahead and just throw out, it's arguable between the two of them, but I'm going to lead with second and then go to first. Second, Pawnbroker, and then first, Failsafe. I was not expecting Failsafe at all.
Joe, what's interesting is you didn't say the one I thought you were going to say. Because I think The Hill was the bigger surprise.
That's true.
In a lot of ways, because I think Pawnbroker, I didn't know what to expect from that, and it was, I guess it is still a good surprise because I didn't know what to expect, and it was like the standout of that season. Failsafe, I've heard of that title enough that I kind of expected it to be at least good, because it seems to have the biggest out of all the movies in that season, of those Sidney Lumet movies. That's the one with the biggest reputation. So I kind of don't think that one was a surprise, right? It kind of just lived up to the cred that it has. I think Pawnbroker, I just didn't know anything about, so it was a surprise in that sense. The Hill, though, kind of felt like I for some reason, I thought it looked less interesting. Like, I put it on because it was the next one there, it was available, and yeah, it's got like a star in it and whatnot. But it was so good that I think it's the bigger surprise of the bunch, because I think I had, like, for some reason, I expected it to be kind of dull. And it very much wasn't. It was great. So
no, yeah, that's entirely fair. I mean, I will say I think a bunch of 70s thrillers kind of surprised me a little bit, but
sure.
I don't think any of them were so surprising outside of, like, again, The Hill and stuff like that. I think that those
the thrillers were a bit more of an open book, where I'd heard like some good things about Clue, but I didn't know what to expect. But so I wasn't shocked that it was great, but I didn't know what it was going to be. I guess maybe Night Moves was a pleasant surprise, because I didn't know what to expect from that. But I don't know if anything is as surprising as The Hill. But I suppose the weird thing about that, though, is that because it's a director season and we're doing them because, the director's supposed to be good. And by the time we get to The Hill, we've already done 4 of his movies and we've had a good to amazing time with all of them. I suppose at that point, should you be arguing that it's surprising? But in a weird way, it still felt surprising. I still felt surprised. Yeah. And I guess maybe part of that is that, oh shit, 5 in a row, he's done it. Like, I thought this was going to break the streak, but no, here we are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess, that's kind of the weird thing is it's very, like you said, it's weird that, like, Sidney Lumet, you're expecting it all to be great. And then to say that the 5th one is still great, it's like, well, yeah, should you have expected anything less? But, like, then immediately turns around and is like, yeah, he has a failing point. It's right there. It's right after the 5th one. I don't know. I think my pleasant surprise... See, the reason I said failsafe, and I want to just make that clear, the reason I said failsafe is because everything before that point was so small and intimate for Sidney Lumet. It was so much about, like, an individual and a family and stuff like that. It was very much tiny things and looking at these people and knowing 12 Angry Men, same sort of thing. It's a very small group that we're dealing with. And then we hit failsafe, and failsafe is about, like, the biggest possible stakes. And the way it handled it, the way it was bringing up its topics, was something that I didn't realize Sidney Lumet had the ability to deal with. And it just really shocked me that it was just as capable as all of his other films, if not better than, to some extent.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't find that one surprising. I guess that's where I'm coming down to it, because I was expecting good things from that.
Fair enough. I mean, I think we agree that it is probably somewhere in Sidney Lumet's season. As much as 70s thrillers have a chance of it, I think that it is probably going to be failsafe for The Hill. I would agree that The Hill was also a major surprise. I think that is...
And I think the fact that we've given that a couple of these other categories, like best villain, best looking, like, I was not expecting that from that movie. Like, for those things to stand out the way they did. So I think for me, it probably is The Hill, just based on expectations before watching it and just how high it is on the overall list after. And it's not even the best movie of that season. I think Pawnbroker is the best movie of that season. And then arguably, I think The Hill's not even second. I might put Failsafe second, but it still felt really surprising just how good it was. So,
The
Hill? We're going with The Hill for best?
I'm good with The Hill.
Pleasant surprise. All right. Good. Pleasant surprise of the year is The Hill. Next up, best sequel, reboot, or remake, which this might not always be applicable, admittedly, but we did do some franchises this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, most of our things are sequels to the previous things they were in.
No, only about half. I'd say,
right. No,
Airport, Mission Impossible, Superman, and Naked Gun. Those are the 4 franchisey seasons. So
fair enough. All right, I'll just put out there, I'll start with Superman season. Superman 2, fantastic sequel to Superman 1, and then Superman 2025. I don't know how you would count that, if it's an adaptation of source material or technically a remake, but...
It's in the movie franchise. I would say it's applicable for this.
Yeah, I would say that one also is up there.
I mean, I think Superman 2025 is probably the winner, but let's not discount how good the new Naked Gun is, because that was also great. Yep. I think the best Mission Impossible is 4, with arguably like 7 and 6 kind of falling behind it. So those are worth mentioning for sure as well.
Yeah. I guess it's weird because 2, I think, keeps up the same as 1. Superman 2 to Superman 1 keeps up the same. And then with Naked Gun, I think that there is a fall off between 2 to 3, but then 2025 brings it back up to around about 1 to 2 range. It's somewhere in that category. But I think Mission Impossible 4 is such a standout comparatively to everything that came before it. Like 1 is good, 2 is crap, 3 is pretty good, and then 4 just like takes it to this next level. And like we said all the time during that franchise, it kind of is the definitive standard of what the rest of the franchise is going to be.
Yeah, it is weird. Because I mean, the category is best sequel, reboot, or remake. So all variations are considered. And I think Superman 2025, like, we rated that very highly. We were both fans of the character, so it meant a lot to us. I feel like it's just the natural winner here. But of course, a lot of this is the circumstance of like, what other seasons do we do? I think Mission Impossible, if we hadn't done Superman season, I think Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol would be really fighting for this category.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's weird because obviously this isn't like a direct remake of Superman. It is just kind of the adaptation of source material, but it is. I get like
reboot is one of the words in reboot.
Yeah, no,
sequel, reboot, or remake. So
entirely fair, and it's also the idea of we like Mission Impossible. There's tons of other action franchises. There's tons of like, you know, other things that you could latch on. The John Wick movies. If you like the Mission Impossible franchise, you're probably a fan of those as well. Like there is a lot of carryover here, but we as DC fans have been so starved for so long that to have any like good Superman, there wasn't another thing to fill that void for the longest time. So I'm just so happy to have it. That in terms of just reboot, that's not only a reboot for the character, that's a reboot for like the hopes and dreams of half the comic industry.
Yeah, it's just so delightful. It's full of energy. It's very earnest and, you know, doing all the things and try to appeal to. It's got something to say as well. It's actually got political like ideas in it, and like is trying to actually use the character to say something about the world. Yeah, I think it's Superman. I think, you know, and this is specific to us, but it's our show, so F it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, so Superman.
What about this is not subjective?
Superman 2025 wins best sequel, reboot, or remake of the year. So a couple of season awards here.
Okay.
We got most consistent season of 2025.
Okay.
Now,
so I'm gonna immediately toss out Bruce Lee and Superman because those had wild swings in either direction.
I mean, Bruce Lee, if you take away Game of Death, it's not that inconsistent. It's kind of, you know,
but I am putting Game of Death in there. That's a swing.
Superman's definitely all over the place because you've got, you know, classic, bit weaker sequel, but very good. And then you've got the weirdness of 3, the absolute pits of 4, Returns, I think, is even worse in some ways. And then it shoots,
absolute pits prematurely.
Yeah, absolutely shoots back up again for. So yeah, it's definitely not Superman. That's absolutely Naked Gun kind of like trends downwards and then goes back up for the end. So maybe not that. That said, though, is one anomaly enough because looking at the other options here, like Mission Impossible's 2 all over the place because 2 stinks. We're pretty lukewarm in 5. So, you know, it's definitely
but then 4 is like something special as well.
I mean, I think Bruce Lee is quite consistent, not at the highest level, admittedly. I think for consistency, though, I mean, Sidney May like does obviously dip at the end, but there's a very consistent trend in the middle, like start to like 5 out of 7 was a very consistent kind of experience. It felt like to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the flip side of Bruce Lee season is Christmas season that we just wrapped up, where pretty much everything was like more or less middling, and then It's a Wonderful Life is just great.
Shut your whore mouth. Jingle All the Way is an absolute classic, okay? It's a gem.
All right. My scores show that everything being a little more middling. And then Wonderful Life.
Yeah, I mean, I think 70s Thrillers is an interesting one because it's more 50-50, but arguably does that make it more consistent because it's kind of bouncing between good and...
I would say it's less, yeah. The more that we have to keep on bouncing around.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, in that weird way then, I do think Sidney Lumet and Bruce Lee season are probably the two that I would argue that are the most consistent.
Yeah. And I think here's the thing. When we talked about Sidney Lumet, we did directly say there was a big drop-off. Like, we did specifically say, like, how incredible it was to go from Pawnbroker Failsafe to Hill and then hit Anderson Tapes, and it just feels different.
Yeah.
I think Bruce Lee, yes, you have that for Game of Death, but we've already talked about how that wins the Weirdness Award. That is something a little bit different. Nothing theoretically changed for Sidney Lumet between those series, besides just time. This had a definitive reason why, so I feel like it should probably win out on most consistent.
Yeah, that we know of. I mean, maybe he was going through a bad divorce or something. I don't know what was going on in his life.
I mean, based off the Anderson Tapes, I would just say he doesn't like the evolving technology, and that's like a big sticking point for him. But I don't know.
So you're arguing for Bruce Lee for most consistent?
I'm arguing for Bruce Lee because I think as much as it is a major nosedive for Game of Death, at the very least, we have a very clear finger we can point to as to why there was a difference.
Didn't you start this category off by saying that wasn't consistent? Like, if I flipped you 180 completely?
Oh, no, I'm just saying it's there. I'm just saying, like, there is a major drop-off, but there is something that we can point to, at the very least. I was considering that, you know, maybe Superman season or some other season further down would be more consistent. I hadn't looked yet.
Yeah, I mean, Superman is almost a bell curve. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's a bit uneven on one side, I suppose, but you know, it's like a drop off, drop up again. You know, it's very all over the place. Admittedly, I think my enjoyment of watching them was a lot more consistent. I think the only one that I actually found miserable to sit through was Returns, if I'm honest. But that's a little bit of a different like metric we're going by.
I love looking at the years as well because you see like 78 and 80 Superman. Doing great, making numbers. 3 comes out, probably still made some numbers, but it's going downhill. And then at 87, everyone at Warner Brothers has their head in their hands like, oh God, we're going to go bankrupt. And then 2 years later, Batman comes out. They're like, never mind, we're fine.
Yeah, I think Bruce Lee's probably, I think it depends how you want to judge it, but I think Bruce Lee is a very consistent season by and large. There was a lot of very similar scores.
Yeah. And I would also say when we did get the actual fight scenes involving Bruce Lee in Game of Death, they were consistent, if not better than previous episodes. Like that part stayed consistent throughout the fight scene aspect.
That's the tragedy of it though, right? Is that like this could have been his best movie had he not passed away. Like there was something special maybe brewing there, but unfortunately we'll never get to know. I mean, I mean, Naked Gun's only got the one kind of real dip, but it's still kind of tough to say.
It feels different though. Like as much what you were saying with the Superman one where you still were enjoyable throughout, I feel like Naked Gun, because it was a comedy, when it didn't work, it really didn't work.
All right, Bruce Lee season wins most consistent of 2025, and on the flip side, the most tumultuous season, i.e. the one that was jumping around the most, I mean, maybe I kind of stumbled into my answer with 70s season, 70s thrillers, because we had 2 great movies, then it dipped down to one that I really didn't like. You were a bit more positive on with Long Goodbye. Then it was down to a stinker with Laughing Policeman, shot back up for Night Moves, shot down again for 2 Minute Warning, and then shot, not super high, but relatively back up to positive with Hardcore. So that's definitely up and down.
All over the place. Yeah. I mean, even just looking at it from the whether or not it makes the cut, like the fact that we have 4 making the cuts and then 2 to 3, depending on how to get cutting it close or cut from the collection. So it almost splits it right down the middle of makes the cut, doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, I think that's fair. To be fair, I do think that the season types obviously like a season where it's like a group of a genre is always going to probably be more up and down than a franchise or a director, which have reasons to be more similar as you go through. So it does make sense. But yeah, the 70 Thrillers is the most tumultuous season, so that wins that. All right. Best movie that we did in 2025.
Oh. Godzilla.
On Collector's Cut.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. Obviously, I'm leaning towards Superman. As much as I like all the Sidney Lumet stuff, and there's even some stuff coming in 70s, I really like Superman.
I mean, I think Pawnbroker has a real fight here. I think I mean, if I'm looking at my favorites that we did this year, right? If I'm looking through the seasons here, I think Ghost Protocol, I don't really think it has a fight here, but it's my favorite of Mission Impossibles. I think the new Superman, the original Superman. I think Clue, Night Moves, Pawnbroker, Failsafe to Hell, and to an extent, It's a Wonderful Life. I'd maybe throw in there as well. But that's those are the biggies. I think those are arguably the best movies of this entire year that we did.
Yeah, I mean, I have Superman in my head just because, we were just talking about it, and I do really like those movies. But you bring up Failsafe again, and Failsafe is one I gave a 9.5 to. Like, I really did like the way that movie was done. I like the tension to it, the way the characters are fleshed out. And then, like, that whole little brick in Sidney Lumet season between Pawnbroker to Hill, like, all of that was just fantastically well done. I do think that, like, French Connection, Night Moves, those were surprising, but I think that in terms of, like, actually saying something, in terms of actually having, like, a deeper message and stuff like that.
I never said French Connection. I'd include French Connection in this list of best movies we did this year. Yeah.
I find it hard to shy away from Failsafe. I think that was one that, like, we watched and we kept on. I mean, it's really hard to say what's so special about it without spoiling it.
Oh, yeah, there's spoilers to beware, so I wouldn't get into it.
We kept on waiting for it to take a different turn, and it just never did. It kept on doing this one specific thing, and I appreciate the balls on it, honestly. So I think I would lean towards Failsafe out of that entire list that you were listing off. But obviously, The Hill is very strong. We brought that up. I think it still is most surprising from what I was going into it for, but Failsafe was still, like, just off the heels of Pawnbroker, literally the same year they came out, and it just nailed it as equally as Pawnbroker did, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would lean a little bit more towards Pawnbroker than Failsafe. Okay. But I do think those are the ones we're discussing here. Yeah. Yeah.
It really comes down to your preference between, do you like the small, intimate story where, like, we do a real character drama, or do you like this sort of larger thing where the stakes are raised? Because it's very different in the way it's approaching that.
I mean, I like both, but I think, honestly, to get a little peek behind the thought process of seasons here, like, doing 70s Thrillers and Sidney Lumet season, like, back to back, like we did, and how much, like, there's some stinkers, of course, but how much quality there was in the movies in those two seasons, I'm like, yeah, less shitty franchises like in the next couple of years. Let's do some more serious cinema. Come on.
Pete, I'm watching the spreadsheet. You're deleting the Lord of the Rings franchise. Why are you doing that?
I just, like, I mean, I like doing some schlocky stuff, but it was kind of like, after like 3 or 4 seasons in a row of these franchises, some of which I admittedly really like, it was so nice to be doing, like, some surprising movies that I hadn't seen before, and scratching out some Sidney Lumet seasons, some of them by being Criterion movies, which is always nice to get some of those done. I'm happy to say Failsafe. I'll concede here and say Failsafe, because I don't really feel that much in it, because they're both excellent, but we'll say Failsafe is the movie of the year. And then to knock onto that, and a lot of what we just said will apply to this conversation, which is what we think is the best season of the year.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be between 70s Thrillers and Sidney Lumet.
Yeah, it's those two, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think... No, go ahead.
Yeah, because I look at 70s Thrillers, and the ones that stuck out to me that I liked: Clue, French Connection, Night Moves and Hardcore are a really strong foursome. And then I look at Sidney Lumet, and you've got Fugitive Kind, Long Day's Journey to Night, that were both really solid, and I really liked those in a lot of ways. But then everything went up a notch for Pawnbroker, Failsafe, and The Hill, and that's 5 out of 7 that were good to fantastic. And then even Child's Play, well, it was a bit weaker, had a lot more going for it than Anderson tapes. Like Child's Play that had some stuff to talk about. There was interesting characters, there was interesting themes. It just had some missteps as well. So I think if I'm coming down on it, I would say my favorite season of the year was probably Sidney Lumet season, but I think 70s Thrillers was right like nipping on its heels, and I think that, you know, there's more variety there, which is both good and bad, because there's more of a chance of hitting some stinkers, I suppose, but
right,
you know.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much in the same boat as you, is looking at, I mean, they're both even 7 movies long each. Like, it's very comparable, just going by, like, even the numbers. But, yeah, I even had a more strong opinion of Long Goodbye than you, so I have even more of a reason to say 70s Thrillers. But I think that Sidney Lumet had such high highs. Like, the peaks that Sidney Lumet reached, we maybe got out of, like, French Connection. But like everything else in there was just sub beneath that 3 movie block. And then even the 2 before it, like you said, the Fugitive Kind and Long Day's Journey into Night, as much as they felt like melodramas, they were well done melodramas. They were very good.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd put Clute as high as French Connection, honestly, from 70s season. But
I mean, you rated them the same. I put Clute slightly lower, but yeah. So yeah, no, I come down. I think I lean towards Sidney Lumet season being the best season this time around. And it's weird because, like, if you had cut it off after 5, if you had said we're just doing early Sidney Lumet up to the 1960s, cut off after The Hill, I'd say it's possibly the best season we've ever done. I think that is absolutely top tier stuff. But adding on Anderson tapes and Child's Play, it brings into question with previous seasons. I think there's now a little bit more competition on top of that. Dance movies, definitely up there.
I don't know about that. It does, like, I mean, I wouldn't want to do this entire list for all the previous years, but there is maybe something to be said for maybe we've got a bit of quiet time in the summer or something, like, since we never did these end of year specials before, to go back and maybe pick some best seasons of some of the previous years and maybe a few of the bigger categories, you know, ones that don't require us to remember maybe quite as much as everything we've done here. But just so we've given out a season of the year for every year we've done the show, kind of thing.
Right.
But no, I think Sidney Lumet season takes it, and I'll just tell everyone right now, season 2 of Sidney Lumet is already kind of on the schedule for late next year. So that will be returning to his filmography before too long has passed. So that is that, and that takes us on to kind of our best episode of 2025, but this isn't really for us to decide. But that said, though, I think it's worth us maybe putting in a little opinion before we put over to the audience vote, as it were. Yeah,
so I don't think the audience is going to vote for this, but personally, I think that from, as much as it sucks to say, from Pawnbroker to Hill, that same grip there, like, those 3 movies, I think we were on top of our game with, like, analysis and really laying into, like, themes and everything that was going on there. I think we could have been mistaken for legitimate critics at some point.
I will say that I kind of agree with that. I think our Sidney Lumet season gave us a lot of good episodes because the movies were so interesting to think about, and those 3 in particular were so passionate and a lot to discuss. I do think between various factors, I think every single episode in the Superman season was a banger, because I think between the passion of obviously us caring about the character and the property, but also just like, okay, the first film is this classic that's fascinating to look at because it did so many things right, analyzing the villains in the second one and what it did with that, but then the absurdity, like the almost extra reels quality of 3 and 4, and even more so, I suppose, with Return, because Returns, like, I was so passionate in my hatred that I almost think that in some ways it may be the best episode of that season, because I've been like, no, I'm tearing this thing to shreds, and I'm explaining why it's gobshite. And then I think the new one was this, you know, it was like fresh, it was new, it was exciting, it's all this hope for the future of the DC universe and all the rest of it. I think every single episode that season was a good episode of the show.
That's fair. if we're talking best, so was the category specifically best season or best like episode?
Best episode, but I think every episode in that season happened to be good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's the same sort of thing we were talking about before. I think that the Sidney Lumet hits higher highs, but Superman, like, we spoke as fans. We didn't speak as people who were just encountering this. We spoke as knowledgeable about the subject and were also able to break it down on a movie perspective.
Yeah. Well, alternatively, I liked doing the season. It was fun to go through it as a fun little romp. Like, I think the Naked Gun episodes are probably some of the weakest just because they're comedies and I don't know how much there was to say in relation to other stuff.
That's always the problem because it basically just comes down to, did you notice this gag? Remember when they said this? Like, it's fun for us to watch them and like comment, but unless it's absolutely crap, there's not a lot to say.
And I think, the Christmas season was probably, I'd say, maybe kind of the weakest season in some ways. Not because I think any of the episodes were bad per se, but just because I think it's more of a hodgepodge of movies that don't really... Like, I think 70s thrillers as a theme works better than just here's an assortment of different Christmas movies, to my mind.
Yeah. So, no, for sure. It definitely... Like, if you were to say, like, make it a 7-episode season of Christmas, like one from each decade, so be it. But we kind of just went with this vagueness of like, old, not so old, kind of new. Like, it's a lot less defined.
Yeah, so, it is what it is. But I think... I will say this, looking down all these seasons, I think I am happy with like 80% of our episodes this year. There's only a few that I think are a bit weaker. And it's not that I think they're terrible or anything. It's just I just don't think that the Naked Guns are as good discussions, or same with Christmas movies for the most part. But otherwise, I think there was something to enjoy in all of those. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm looking at last year's, to go from Ghostbusters into dance movies may have been ill-advised.
Yes, that may have hurt my soul. But hey, let's see what people actually voted for. And we've got a few categories for voting here. We've got Best Episode of the Year. We also have Best Season of the Year. We'll see what won that. And as a bonus here, we also have Top 5 Extra Reels Episodes of the Year.
I know my favorite. I know the one that I keep revisiting. I want to see where it's at.
So starting off with the top 10 episodes of Collector's Cut as voted for by our audience. Number 10... is The Pawnbroker.
I mean, that might just be a lack of interest sort of thing of people not knowing what they're missing out on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's out of like, what, 50 episodes-ish, something like that. Number 9 is Superman 4.
Okay.
Number 8 is Child's Play.
How many of those people think that we did the Chucky movie when they clicked on it and then were surprised?
Number 7 is the original Superman.
Okay.
Number 6 is Hardcore.
Fair.
5 is the original Naked Gun.
Okay.
4 is Way of the Dragon.
Okay. All right.
3,
can't say I really expected that one.
3 is It's a Wonderful Life.
All right. Good.
2 is Jingle All the Way.
Why do you guys give Pete ammunition to prove that he's right?
And number 1, as voted for by our audience, the best episode of Collector's Cut 2025 was Clue.
Okay. I'll be honest, I didn't see Clue being on the list, but I guess we spoke about it intelligently, or at least people liked the movie.
Yeah, it's an interesting list. As for best season of the year, the winner of that was 70s Thrillers. That is the most voted for. Runners up that were actually pretty much tied were Sidney Lumet season and Superman. So the individual episodes are kind of weird and surprise me a little bit here or there, I do think those seasons make sense. I think the passion for Superman gets up to those other two, and then I think 70s Thrillers and Sidney Lumet are just the most interesting batch of movies.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just shows the whole breadth of our audience. There's the people who came in via like the comics route, the people who know that we enjoy our comic books and whatnot. You got the people who are here for a little bit of film snobbery of older films that might not be noticed so much with Sidney Lumet. And then you got our people who really like our 70s movies, which seems to be like the most watched things. And I don't understand why, but sure. Thank you.
Yep. And then top 5 Extra Reels episodes, which were, again, voted for. And we can give what our favourites are after I've read these.
Okay. I'll try not to. I'll keep a poker face when you say my favorite.
Number 5. Pass Through.
Okay. Neil Breen makes sense.
Yep. And this is, I think, 13. I think we did 13 extra reels in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Joker, Folie à Dieu.
I'll be honest, I kind of forgot we did that one. So, yep.
Number 3, War of the Worlds.
Okay.
Presented by Amazon Prime Delivery. Number 2, Postal.
You're all disowned. As long as you're talking, if you're saying that we did a good job, okay. If you're saying the Postal is anything worth watching,
this is not best movies. This is our best episodes, right?
Okay.
Keep that in mind. This is not about the quality of the movie. And number 1.
Come on.
By a margin that is fairly significant, might I add.
Yes.
The runaway favorite episode of Extra Reels of 2025.
Come on.
Love on a Leash.
Yes. Oh my God. There's a bit in that review where we're talking about the transition of the scene where it's the transition between her sexual assault scene and her suicide. And I go back and watch that so much because we break down laughing while saying that transition is happening. And it's funny to even think about.
Yep. I mean, I don't know if anything's made us buckle in laughter quite though. Where we couldn't talk for like another minute whilst we were trying to compose ourselves. That's the thing, really, more than anything. I mean, I guess if I'm looking at the list of episodes, I mean, it makes sense to me that was number 1. It makes sense that War of the Worlds was high up, and that Pass Through was there. If there's anything where I'm like, oh, that should have been there, I'm surprised it's not higher. I don't know if maybe Steel. I feel like there was a lot of fun talking about Steel, but
I'm surprised Getaven didn't get higher up.
Oh, that was this year. You're right. Oh shit. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm surprised Getaven wasn't a bit higher up then. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously Hot Frosty wasn't able to make the cut because it was last year.
That was last year. Yeah.
Hot Frosty was garbage.
I mean, yes, it was last year's. I mean, if I'm picking a movie from, because that was the 3rd year of Extra Reels. If I'm picking a movie from year 2 of Extra Reels, would it be Mac and Me? Maybe it would be Fateful Findings. Maybe it's Madame Web, because that was me, you, and Tim. That was a fun time.
I like Madame Web. It brought in an extra view. I will say Mac and Me nearly killed me because I was downing all those Cokes the whole time.
And then your number 1, if I'm picking a favorite, I mean, we had a lot of good ones, like, because we had Miami Connection, Dangerous Men, Gone with the Pope, Double Down from Neil Breen,
more Lacey Chabert and Christian Mingle.
That's a tough one, that first year. I think Dangerous Men, I think, won the tournament, so I think Dangerous Men probably would have to be my favorite episode. But still, there you go. So if you want to get access to all these extra reels, everyone, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Is our bonus monthly show that we do on Patreon or via YouTube membership. You can get access to it that way as well. And these are some of the absolute trash movies that we review on there.
Definitely worth checking out. Yeah. Definitely, because I'm not doing this for free. Get on there.
So yes, there you go. And that will bring an end to our 2025 end of year special. Hopefully this was fun, and if you like the idea of us doing this kind of wrap up at the end of the year with the categories and giving you guys a chance to vote. If you missed out the chance to vote, the voting form was posted in the post section of YouTube. It was posted on the Discord. That's where you check for these types of things when they come up. Yeah, if you like this, let us know and we'll do it again next year. I kind of like the idea of doing this just to sort of reflect on the year, see what sort of crazy shenanigans we got up to, and there we go. So that is that. As I said, Patreon, YouTube membership, those are the way to support us. You can do it for free by liking, subscribing, 5 stars in your podcast app, all that stuff. But that is the show. So we will see you for the continuation of our current season, which is Disaster Movies Season 5.
Oh boy.
And I think Armageddon's coming up. Or no, actually, no, Deep Impact just came out yesterday. Armageddon's next week. Yeah.
Sure.
So,
I don't know when you're posting these, so I'll take your word for it.
The plan is Sunday for this one, but who knows if I'll make it. I have to edit out all those slurs and things you said that would get us out of trouble. Yeah.
No, as soon as we started talking about Mission Impossible 2 for even a second, I was unstoppable. I was just going off.
Is that maybe a joke because the villain was Scottish? Is that where you were going with for that?
Was he? Mm-hmm. I didn't even notice.
That's the show, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Have a happy new year. Or I hope you had a happy new year because it'll already happen by the time you get this. Keep watching movies.
Still got 360 days left. It could be the rest of a happy new year.
Keep watching movies. We'll see you next time. And if you can get it, I have to remember what my outro line was. If you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.